So welcome to Banik YouTube class for OCS examination. We shall be completing the rest rest part of the Vice President, Union Council of Ministers and Prime Minister, Attorney General. So we had come until quotations. We shall now focus on quotations. Last class we had discussed the appointment, qualification, powers of the Prime Minister of India, and also went through the list of Prime Minister in India, and we had discussed some important facts about. Kindly remember the rank or the position of the Prime Minister, means the rank of Prime Ministers and their achievements and their term, all these things. Now, as you know, Prime Minister is considered to be an integral or a very powerful, a moving force in parliamentary democracy. In fact, parliamentary government will not be viable if Prime Minister is not strong enough. So it depends upon the personality and the farsightedness, knowledge, wisdom of the Prime Minister. For the success of the parliamentary democracy in India, it adds much to that. Hence, there have been many quotations on the Prime Minister, especially related to Britain Prime Minister. We can also have these quotations on the Prime Minister related to India. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar once said in the Constituent Assembly that if any functionary under our Constitution is to be compared with the US President, he is the Prime Minister, not the President of the Union. So if anybody asks the question who is to be compared with the US President, it is not the President, in fact it is the Prime Minister, because President is a nominal head, ceremonial head. His presence in the constitutional hierarchy is of different matters, but he is not involved in active governance. He doesn't influence the policy making, he doesn't exercise the power of governance. Hence, Prime Minister enjoys all these things, hence he must be compared with. Next, H.R. Greaves once said that government is the master of the country and the Prime Minister is the master of the government. In fact, government rules the country and Prime Minister controls the government. Hence, it is called that Prime Minister is the master of the government, because his presence, his will, his decision, his perceptions are reflected mostly in the government. So, whatever government nature, characteristic and scope of the government that can be defined well by the approach of the Prime Minister. Hence, he is the master. H.R. Greaves. Then Ramsey Mohit said Prime Minister is the captain of the ship of the state. He said, it's Caesar Munro. Munro said he is the captain of the ship. If the state is a ship, then the Prime Minister is the captain. If he leads the country on a better shape, on a better passage, in a better passage, then it will reach development, it will reach prosperity, otherwise it may be perished, it may be finished or vanished. So it may be drowned, that happens. So that is the things. Then the Prime Minister is the steersman of the steering wheel of the ship of the states. Okay, that is also exactly like that. Then Harcourt described Prime Minister as the interstellus luna minoris. He is a moon among the lesser stars. He is a moon among the lesser stars. He has a influential position in the cabinet, in the Council of Ministers. In fact, the Council of Ministers or the ministers are chosen by him, or their handpicks. So his decision, his perception, his decision making authority, quality, all are reflected in the government. So it depends. The success of the government invariably depends upon the Prime Minister. Hence, he is called the interstellus luna minoris, or the moon among the lesser stars. And Jennings said he is rather a sun around which planets revolves. Here the planets may refer to the ministers, and is the sun, so the derived power, as planets derive light from source or energy from the sun, also ministers derive their powers or get their powers through Prime Minister. It is the Prime Minister which allocates portfolios and which has a supervising authority or an ultimate authority over all departments of the government. And he is the son, and all roads in the Constitution leads to the Prime Minister. The Constitution success or the successful functioning of the Constitution or implementation of the government Constitution is only depends on the way the Prime Minister running the government. So if the Prime Minister supports or gives vent to unconstitutional things, then the Constitution may be in peril and may be in danger. Hence he said that all roads in the Constitution leads to the Prime Minister. Lasky says the pivot around which the entire government machinery revolves. So that is also the similar fact, and also another is there that is okay. So these are the quotations, and is also called primus inter pares, fast among equals by Morley, that is primus inter pares, or fast among equals. So all these quotations suggest that Prime Minister secures an enviable position in the politico-administrative system in the country. He is virtually the de facto ruler, sovereign ruler of the country, and his all the powers of functioning or ruling the governance depends upon the Prime Minister. And Prime Minister is assisted by an office called Prime Minister's Office. Earlier it was called Prime Minister's Secretariat. And the Prime Minister is assisted by the PMO. It provides secretarial assistance to the PM. And PMO is a staff agency meant for providing secretarial assistance and crucial advice to the Prime Minister. It came into existence in 1947. PMO came to the limelight during the Prime Ministership of that is Lal Bahadur Shastri, and became quite prominent during the tenure of the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. So it depends upon the Prime Minister how they relate the PMO to them, and if the Prime Minister depends upon the Prime Minister guards to the PMO, or PMO gives authority to the PMO and depends upon the PMO, then invariably PMO becomes a super cabinet. So PMO is a secretarial assistance, and there is also a cabinet secretariat to assist the ministers. So cabinet secretariat does the same work as the PMO, but PMO is only assigned to the Prime Minister. Hence, as the Prime Minister is associated with the office, hence this office carries some more significance and more vital than the cabinet secretariat in matter respect if the Prime Minister assigns special responsibility to PMO. So if you go through the political experience or political governments, Prime Ministers in the country since independence, you can see that in sometimes during some Prime Minister's reign, PMO became very prominent and became a super cabinet, and so to say became a that is a government of government. Some labeled it, some criticized it as government of government. So it depends if the principal secretary is a man of wisdom and man of knowledge, experience, and if the Prime Minister assigns all the important tasks to them, then it becomes a super cabinet sometimes. So the functioning and the nature and characteristic of PMO varies from Prime Minister to Prime Minister. Overall, it is a very authentic staff agency, powerful staff agency that to assist the Prime Minister, and it got the status of the Department of Government of India since 1961. It prepares agenda for the Prime Minister. It looks for the coordination among the department ministries of the Government of India. It sends any notification, that is Prime Minister's notification to all the ministry. All these things are done by the PMO. So lot of things, secretarial assistance. Okay, apart from that, there is a cabinet secretary also. So we have already discussed list of Prime Minister. So list of Prime Minister may आप लोग देख सकते हैं कि नंबर 1, 2, 3, so Shastri was the second prime minister. And another notable thing that we have to record it, that Gulzarlal Nanda, a person who also served as acting prime minister of India for nearly 1 month, and after Nehru, and she also acted sometimes after the death of Shastri also. So he was the acting prime minister of India for twice. Indira Gandhi became the third prime minister, and she had a very significant reign, about 12 years in India, and she became the necessary or the natural successor to Nehru, after to the government after the death of Lal Bahadur Shastri. Indira Gandhi became the prime minister. Then Morarji Desai became the first non-Congress prime minister of India, but he had a very fast term, he had a very short term, and he was the first prime minister to resign also. Then Charan Singh also had a very brief stint. Then Rajiv Gandhi came back in 84, 89. Then Indira Gandhi continued from 80 to 84, and 84 she was assassinated. Then Rajiv Gandhi became the prime minister and continued for 5 years. Then VP Singh, so it had a short term only. There was a coalition rapport, and VP Singh 1989 to 90. So he had a very short term. Then all the prime minister, Charan Singh, he had also a short term in November to June 1991, just 7 to 8 months. Then PV Narasimha Rao was the prime minister from Congress. He served 91 to 96. Then Atal Bihari Vajpayee had a very brief term for, you can say, 13 to 14 days. Then it collapsed and defeated by no confidence motion. Then SD Devagowda also defeated by no confidence motion. And I.K. Gujral had also brief term, so 12th prime minister. Then 13th prime minister became the Manmohan Singh. She continued for 10 years, and then Narendra Modi has been continuing as the prime minister. He is the 14th prime minister of India and continuing since 2014. It is his second term. So these are the list, and another notable thing, if you notice, that some of the prime ministers were also chief ministers, served also chief minister. If you consider, Morarji Desai served as the CM of Bombay State, and Charan Singh also CM of Uttar Pradesh, VP Singh also CM of UP, and that is Chandrasekhar PV Narasimha Rao also CM of Andhra Pradesh, then SD Devagowda also CM of Karnataka, and Narendra Modi also CM of Gujarat. So I think we have had 5 chief ministers, 5 prime ministers also served as the chief ministers of the state. Okay. So these are the things, and you can also notice, guess how many prime ministers have been awarded Bharat Ratna. So in this way, you have to have an idea about the persons associated with or receiving any honor, award, or anything. Okay. That is a list of prime minister. Then we shall come to Central Council of Ministers. It is said that Article 74 of the Constitution says that the prime minister, the president shall exercise his authority or his govern the country with the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers headed by the prime minister. So Council of Ministers plays a very central role in the functioning of the parliamentary democracy. They are not only in charge of departments but also decision makers. They are a part of the cabinet system, which is the major decision making or ultimate sovereign decision making body in the country. So that means ministers play a pivotal role or hold a pivotal position in a parliamentary democracy. And the ministers are of various categories. The ministers can be cabinet ministers. So first of all, let us see that Council of Ministers hold a pivotal position. in a parliamentary setup. In a parliamentary setup. And what do? They are a part of the cabinet. They are a part of the cabinet, which is the ultimate decision making body in the country. They influence policy making in the cabinet. Okay, they are together called government. Called government along with Prime Minister. They design policy for their own ministry. They prepare budget. They are the political head of the department. They are the political head. They are political head ministry. So they hold a central position in this. Okay? They hold a central position in this regard. Then type of ministers जो निकले types of ministers. There are cabinet minister, there are minister of state, and your deputy ministers. Deputy ministers. So council of ministers are constitute cabinet, minister of state, deputy ministers. Cabinet minister constitute around 20% of, you can say, 20-25% of the ministers are cabinet ministers. Total ministry size, ministries are together. And these are the ministers. So these ministers, size of the minister, strength, size, not mentioned in the constitution. Not mentioned in the constitution. Defined by 91st Amendment Act 2003. 91st Amendment Act 2003 determines the strength of Council of Ministers to be 15%, of the strength of Lok Sabha. So as I told you, the strength of Council of Ministers was not mentioned in the constitution. Rather, it was later made that added 91st Amendment Act 2003, which said that the strength of the Council of Ministers shall not exceed 15% of the total strength of the House. It means that the total strength of the house, if you consider 543 into 15%, so that is around 81. So the strength of the number of councillor minister in central government shall not exceed 81. And out of these 81 ministers, 15 to 20 around shall be given or shall be assigned cabinet portfolios, cabinet positions. That what cabinet means, that a type of things within a thing. So if the council of ministers are a wheel, then the cabinet is a wheel within the wheel, because the council of ministers are the bigger size and the cabinet is within it. So if the entire ministers reside in the council of ministers, then the cabinet will be sitting in the middle. So there are many ministers, you can notice, but cabinet ministers are there inside. So cabinet ministers are the hold central positions in the ministry, and they meet together, decide together. They are headed by the Prime Minister. This reason the system is called, you can say, wheel within the wheel, wheel within the wheel, because it holds core responsibility, core portfolios, and that are decided by the PM. That is called. So remember the 93rd Amendment Act 2003, which states that the size of the ministry shall not exceed 15% of the total strength. Let me clarify you that this amendment is also applicable in case of your that is in case of your states also, but the states can have either 12 ministers or 15% of the total strength, depending whichever is earlier, whichever is higher. The smaller states, the smaller state where the 15% of the lower house is less than 12, it will be 12. That is the thing. So you have discussed types and the size of the ministry. Then qualifications. If you consider the qualification of the ministers, it is same as the prime ministers. That means no specific qualification are assigned to become a minister. Only it's that they must be or required to be an MP. So like the Prime Minister, the ministers must be an MP, a member of Parliament. But as we have already discussed, it is not required for a person to become a member of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha before or at the time of appointment, at the time of his appointment as a minister in the Union Council of Ministers. he or she can be appointed as a minister and shall have to seek a seat or secure a seat in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha within 6 months from the date of appointment. Otherwise, he or she will cease to become a minister. Okay, that is the same as qualification. Then term salaries are not fixed. Salaries they get as a salary as an MP, but except the salary of an MP, they get certain allowances, certain privileges, financial perks. So that together that is determined by the parliament. So salary allowances of the ministers are determined by the parliament. Then their removal. You consider the removal of the ministers, they can be individually removed by the president on the advice of the prime minister. Even prime minister can ask a minister to resign. So we can say that ministers can be removed by a president, no doubt on the advice of the prime minister. Then reappointment, if you consider, reappointment of the ministers can take place for any term. There is no bar for a person to become a minister for any term. That is called reappointment. And a minister can be in charge of more than one portfolio at a time. That is also a point to be remembered. Another thing, a minister can be a member of either house. He can be a member of Lok Sabha, he can be a member of Rajya Sabha. And he has a right to take part in the debate and discussion in each house, even if he is not a member of both houses. But at the time of voting, he has to retreat to his or her house. That is called your rights of ministers and attorney general. They can take part in the proceedings and debate of other house, but they cannot vote there. That is also a point to be remembered under Article 88. Okay? And council of ministers are political head of their departments, cabinet ministers. They design the policy, budget, other things. So council of ministers together, and this provision of council of minister is taken from the UK Constitution. Then appointment we have already discussed. Oaths or affirmation given by the president. Oaths and affirmation to the ministers are given by the president. So they take oaths and affirmation for the schedule 3 of the Constitution. Then composition we have already discussed, that 91st Amendment Act, you can notice that. Okay. So this is the things, collective responsibility of the ministers. It is said that this is the central principle of parliamentary democracy. Central principle of parliamentary democracy. And the Council of Ministers, according to as per 75, Article 75, you can say, as per Article 75, the Council of Ministers headed by PM is collectively responsible Lok Sabha. So here the word collective responsible means that the ministers and the prime ministers will continue to run the government as long as they have or their party has comfortable majority in the Lok Sabha. And if they lose majority, or confidence of the house, then they will have to go. That is called collective responsibility. So there are two meanings of collective responsibility. Kindly notice it. Note it down also. One meaning of collective responsibility is that they swim and sink together. They swim and sink together. Swim and sink together. They swim and sink together. Even the fault of a single minister, or downsides of the government, or any resignation of the members or defection can lead to the collapse of the government if they are unable to prove their majority. So if they go, they will go at a time. If no confidence motion is passed against them, then all the ministers and prime minister will have to resign. That is therefore called they swim and sink together. Another meaning of collective responsibility is that a minister has to abide by the decision of the cabinet, even if he or she personally disagrees with it. Even if he or she personally disagrees with it. It means that it has to accept the decision of the team. So team spirit is the essential or key hallmark characteristic of the cabinet system. They have to abide by. If any minister goes against the decision, or any minister criticizes the decision of the government or the cabinet, then they have to resign. If you go through the history of parliamentary democracy in India, you will find that many ministers have tendered their resignation because they stood against the decision of the cabinet. R.K. Sanamugam Chetty was the first minister to resign from Nehru cabinet in 1948, and after first general election, Ambedkar became the first minister to resign as the law minister of India, and he protested against Hindu Code Bill. So there have been instances of resignation of the ministers because they stood against the cabinet decisions. So no one can stand against the decision, no one can oppose the decision. They have to respect, they have to abide by, and they have to publicly praise the decision. That is called collective responsibility. So we have seen that there are two implications of collective responsibility mentioned in 75. Apart from that, there are also another responsibility we can call individual responsibility. You can notice the word individual. The word individual means that the ministers are individually responsible to the president. That means president can sack, can remove a minister, and it will not affect the government. There is no impact on the government if president removes the ministers, but there is impact on the government if the president removes the cabinet, the prime ministers. That is also a point to be remembered. Okay. So, ministers are individually responsible to the president and collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. You have to keep in mind, and this provision of individual responsibility is provided in Article 75 of our Constitution, and this concept is a derivative of the British Constitution. Okay. Another thing I want to convey, I want to tell you that unlike Britain, we do not have legal responsibilities assigned to the ministers. In Britain, a minister is also legally responsible for his acts and omissions of commissions. But in India, there is no such legal responsibility assigned to a minister. And you can notice in the screen that cabinet is a term consisting of 15 to 20 ministers holding important portfolios, including home and foreign, defense. It includes the cabinet ministers only. It meets as a body frequently and usually once in a week to deliberate and take decisions regarding transactions of the government business. That is most focal point, that is most important point of the cabinet system, that it meets as frequently and usually once in a week to deliberate and take the transactions of the government. But remember, the Council of Ministers does not meet regularly. It is not a body at all. It is the highest decision making authority. Cabinet is the highest decision making authority in our political administrative system. It is the supreme executive authority of the central government. It determines the functions of the Council of Ministers. It enforces the collective responsibility of the Council of Ministers to the Lok Sabha. It is therefore regarded as a wheel within the wheel. So, the significance of the cabinet is much more in a parliamentary democracy especially. It has no value in a presidential system. They are all mere assistants to the president. But in parliamentary democracy, cabinet ministers are not mere assistants, they are much more things in a parliamentary democracy, that the political face, they are also the part of the government system, they also play a vital role in the sustenance of the government, everything. Okay, so this is called your Council of Ministers and Cabinet Ministers. Remember, then Cabinet Secretariat, as we have already discussed, that to assist the Cabinet or Cabinet Ministers, there is a specific Secretariat established in New Delhi within that, and Cabinet Secretariat it is called, and Cabinet Secretariat is the apex staff agency related to the ministers. It is the major body. It prepares preparation of agenda for each ministers, keeping records of their decisions, of the government taken, provides secretarial assistance to the cabinet committees. There are several committees we have discussed. Keep informed the president, vice president, all the central ministers of the main activities of the central government. Then he is the chief coordinating agency of the central government, and he watches the implementation of the cabinet decisions, handles appointments, allotment of portfolios, organization, reorganization. So, each tidbit of secretarial part work is completed by the Cabinet Secretariat. It is one of the most powerful staff agency in India. Okay, and its role and position is somewhat diminished by the influence of the PMO, but still it is a very major body. And as you see that cabinet does a lot of things, and it has special to be they have a very influential, enviable position in the country, and it is the major decision making body. So for this purpose, sometimes parliamentary democracy is labeled as is termed as, or is called, cabinet form of government. Okay, so all these things are discussed. I hope you are getting good points. Now, Okay, we shall hope to finish the Attorney General, the last part of the Union Executive. Last part, Union Executive का last part जो होता है Attorney General. We have already discussed President, Vice President, Prime Minister, Council of Ministers in a detailed manner. Now, Attorney General is considered a part of the Union Executive because he has an influential role to play in the law. He is the legal face of the government, and Attorney General is the highest law officer of the country. Is the highest law officer of India. Highest law officer of India. Is the legal face of the government. He decides the legal business of the government. He assists the government in that sphere. Well, so is the legal face of the government. And what are its qualifications? What are its qualifications that are also there? That qualifications of Attorney General. The qualification of the Attorney General must be equal to those of the qualifications, those of the Supreme Court, judge of Supreme Court. He is required to have the qualification of a judge of Supreme Court, that he must be a citizen of India, he must have been a judge of High Court for 5 years in High Court or High Courts, and also or he must have been an advocate for 10 years, or he can be recommended as an eminent jurist in the opinion of the President. So these are certain qualifications that are assigned to the judge of Supreme Court, and Attorney General to be appointed must have those qualifications. Kindly remember that Attorney General is not a office, or is not a judge of Supreme Court. He should have the qualification. So same as judge of Supreme Court. Then his appointment are made. His appointment are made by the President, obviously on the advice of the Prime Minister. His term, salary and other things, term, salary are not defined, not fixed. He doesn't have a fixed term, because he continues until the government continues, and his salary doesn't have a fixed salary. He gets remuneration for his work by the government. He can be appointed by the President, or he can be appointed any term, any period of time. So that is also a point to be remembered. Then Attorney General is not to be removed by the President also, and he resigns as soon as the government resigns. This is the term and salary and appointment of the Prime Minister and Attorney General. he is administered oath by the president. So he is a part of the government, part of the Union Executive. Then what are the powers of Attorney General? The powers of Attorney General are many, are few but substantial. The power and functions, powers and, if you notice, powers and functions of Attorney General, he represents Government of India in Supreme Court under the matter under Article 143, when the matter under 143 is being discussed, he will be present there. He also represents government in other legal cases also and other legal cases. Then 2, he can take part in the proceedings of the Parliament without a right to vote Number 3, he can be a part of parliamentary committees, he can be a part of parliamentary committees too. So you can notice from the points that Attorney General is deeply related with the Parliament. He takes part in the proceedings of Parliament, he can do so, but he doesn't have right to vote, and he can be a part of the parliamentary committees. But remember, in no case he has any voting authority. So 88 of the Indian Constitution suggests that the Prime Minister, the Attorney General must participate or has the authority to participate in the debate and the discussion of the Parliament. Under Article 88, he can take part in the proceedings, but he doesn't have right to vote. He can be part of the parliamentary committees like the members, but in no case he has any right to vote. He can represent. Another power that you can add also, that he has the right to audience. He has the power to hear the proceedings, court proceedings, proceedings in any court or tribunal of the country. That is also a point to remember. He has the right to audience. So basically these 4 powers are assigned to him. He is assisted by 2 additional Solicitor General and 4 additional Solicitor General. So 2 are Solicitor General assist him, and also 4 additional Solicitor General should have to assist him. That is also a point to be remembered. Okay. So these are the points of Attorney General we have discussed, and Attorney General is mentioned in Article 76 of the Indian Constitution. Article 76. The first Attorney General of India was, that is, MC Setalvad. MC Setalvad was the NC Setalvad, and MC Setalvad, and that you can say the KK Banugopal is the present one. Go through the list and find the persons who once upon a time who became the Attorney General of India. Okay. So with this we have concluded your Union Executive part. We shall now go to the questions. Okay. We shall now discuss the questions and complete. So please look at the questions. MCQs. We shall proceed now. Okay. So what are the questions? Answer 1. So what are the questions, please? Okay. Okay, so please read out the questions. Who among the following Vice President was not elected as the president? So B.B. Giri and K.R. Narayan. B.B. Giri was the president, K.R. Narayan was the president, Shankar Dayal Sharma president, G.S. Pathak, who was the vice president of India, was not the president. G.S. that is Pathak, number D. But he also served the, I think he is the fourth vice president of India, if I remember. Yes. Then what is the chronological order of the vice president? Gopal Saru Pathak, Zakir Hussain. So Zakir Hussain will be their second vice president. And then we shall bring to Gopal Saru Pathak, 3-1, then 4, B.D. Jati, then 2, 3-1, 4-2. If you go through, kindly check this. B. So Zakir Hussain will be the second vice president. So he will be first, 3-1, 4-2. That is B. Which among the following Prime Minister was of India was not a Chief Minister of a state? So we have already discussed. P.V. Narasimha Rao was the Chief Minister. So I.K. Gujral, C. So kindly take a notice of that. Now we'll come to the next part. Consider the first Prime Minister of India is appointed by the President of India. Yes. At the time of appointment, Prime Minister must be a member of Parliament. That is not required. PM enjoys a fixed term. No. So only one is the answer. A. The electoral college of the Vice President consists of only members of Lok Sabha, no. Only members of Rajya Sabha, no. Only elected members, no. All members of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, D. So answer is D. Well, now the next question, which among the following is incorrect about Vice President of India? He is the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha, yes. The Vice Presidential candidate has to make a security deposit of 15,000, yes. 20 members are proposers, 20 members are yes. He should be a member of Lok Sabha, no. D. So Vice President doesn't require to be a member of Lok Sabha or not, neither Rajya Sabha also, nor Rajya Sabha also, because he is not a member at all. He is the chairperson of Rajya Sabha, but he is not a member, unlike the speaker, he is not a member of any house. Then next 7, which of the chronological order of the Prime Ministers is correct? Indira Gandhi, Morarji Desai, Rajiv Gandhi. So first will come Indira Gandhi, that is 1966, then Morarji Desai 77, 79 and 80. So that is your 1, 2, 4, 2. Sorry. So only not 2, if you consider it 3. And then 1, 2, 1 will be Indira Gandhi, 2 will be Morarji Desai, 4, 3. If you consider 3, then it will be answer C. Please check it. Okay? That is D and C. Who among the following about Prime Minister is not correct? The term Prime Minister fixed at 6 years, no. So first one is incorrect. Let us examine the other points also. He allocates, reshuffles various portfolios among the ministers and can ask a minister to resign or advise to the president dismiss him. Yes, he is the authority to recommend dissolution of Lok Sabha to the president at any time. Yes, he declares the policy of the government. Yes. So answer is A. Answer is A. Ministers in Council of Ministers be chosen from only from Lok Sabha, only from Rajya Sabha, outside the, in all circumstances. D. So kindly take a notice of that. Okay, now question number next. What is the chronological order of the table of presidents of Council of Ministers in the center? So that is Prime Minister, Cabinet Ministers, Minister of State and Deputy Ministers. So that is in the proper ranking 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not a problem. Prime Minister holds third position in the hierarchy. Assertion, the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister is collectively responsible to Lok Sabha. ठीक है. No confidence motion against the ruling party can be introduced only in Lok Sabha. ठीक है. So that is why they are collectively responsible. So A is true and R is the correct explanation. A. Answer is A. Kindly take a notice of this. Okay, now the only vice president died in office, that is in Krishna Kant. He was the first and only vice president to die in office in 2001 or 2. So he was the only vice president. See, just a minute. So he is the only vice president, that is C. Who among the following was not Deputy Prime Minister of India? So with regards to Deputy Prime Minister, let me say that it is not a constitutional office. It is chosen by the Prime Minister, and Supreme Court has also made it clear that Deputy Prime Minister is not a successor to Prime Minister. He is a creation of the Prime Minister. He is a senior most member usually in the cabinet, and he is not assigned any specific work or any specific business as a Deputy Prime Minister. Only it is an honor to the senior member. The first Deputy Prime Minister of India was Sardar Patel. Then there have been many Deputy Prime Ministers. The practice of Deputy Prime Minister has been there. Morarji Desai was the Deputy Prime Minister in Indira government. Charan Singh was the Deputy Prime Minister in Morarji Desai government. Then in Charan Singh government there was also Babu Jagatjeevan Ram, then YB Chauhan, they were also Deputy Prime Ministers. Then during BP Singh's government, Devilal was the Deputy Prime Minister from Haryana, and there was L.K. Advani also the Deputy Prime Minister during the reign of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So the practice has not been followed since then. Yet even we don't have any Deputy Prime Minister of India at present. It is an honor. So here John Mathai was was a Deputy Prime Minister. That was, he was the first railway minister, but he was not the Deputy Prime Minister. Consider the following statement: the concept of Prime Minister and Council of Ministers is based upon the Westminster model. Like the ministers of Council of Ministers, Council of Ministers must be a member of the lower house. Yes, that is correct. But like the UK, the Prime Minister must be a member of the lower house is not provided that. We have seen that we have had for 3 Prime Ministers from Rajya Sabha, that is also from Rajya Sabha. So our Prime Minister can be a member of either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, but in Great Britain, their Prime Minister must be a member of the lower house called House of Commons. So only one is the correct answer. Okay, so that is the things. Now, in the order of the table of precedence, who is the highest in number? Prime Minister is 3rd rank, Cabinet Minister there's 7 rank, 8 rank, and Vice President is the 2nd rank. So obviously he is there, and the Deputy Prime Minister is 5A, C, the 2nd rank, and Deputy Prime Minister is the 5A, yes, along with the ex-presidents. So that is C. Article 66 deals with the election of the Vice President, 69 oath of the Vice President, 74 advice, 78 duties. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is the answer. Kindly take a notice of that. Okay. Next point. Which among the following was not appointed by the President of India? Speaker pro tem is appointed. Speaker is not appointed by the President of India because he is elected. He is elected by the Lok Sabha. To whom the Vice President tenders his resignation? Obviously the President. The Vice President of India is removed by the only elected, that is Rajya Sabha elected by Lok Sabha. That is effective majority and simple majority is followed. C. That is C also. So question number 19, answer is C. Next, that is 20. Who is the ex-officio chairman of the Interstate Council in India? That is under Article 263, that is your Prime Minister of India. So answer is B. Interstate Council is a constitutional body which is established under Article 263. It was first established in 1990 during VP Singh's regime. In which of the following the Prime Minister doesn't preside over? Prime Minister presides over everything on anything that he is a member, but in case of joint sitting he is not the authority. Joint sitting is presided over by the Speaker or Deputy Speaker, Deputy Chairman in that order. So D. Which among the following is regarded as the wheel within the wheel? So we have already discussed Cabinet because of its significant position or significant vital position in the Council of Ministers. That is A. Okay. Next. Who was the first Prime Minister to resign from office? That is, I told you that Morarji Desai was the first Prime Minister to resign in 1979. Which among the following is incorrectly matched? Sardar Baldev Singh, first Deputy Defence Minister, ठीक अच्छी. First Finance Minister John Mathai was not the first Finance Minister, he was the first Railway Minister. R.K. Sanamgam Chetty, R.K.S. Chetty was the first Finance Minister of India. Meme Azad, first Education Minister, and Vallabhbhai Patel, first Home Minister, correct. So answer is B. The maximum number of no confidence motion has been initiated against which Prime Minister? That is Indira Gandhi. 10 times will, that is somewhere it is reported. 10 times she has faced no confidence motions. So these are the answers. Now, okay, so this is all about your Union Executive. We have completed the chapter in a sequence, and we have gone through the MCQs on each chapter also separately. We have discussed around 50 questions on Union Executive. So this is possible that no question can be left, could have been left. But if any question arises in your mind, you can chart it, you can send to us, we shall decide. But it's not very difficult one to solve polity questions, you can get your answers. So understanding polity is enough, you can have a hold over the questions. Okay, in the next class, we shall be starting with Union Legislature and its characteristics, parts, committees. So it is an extensive chapter we are going to start. Parliament of India, the supreme law-making body in the country. We shall examine the points related to Parliament. It will take several classes together. So this practice of providing you YouTube classes on a civil service examination, as I told you, is a unique initiative by BANIC, the mega institutions. So it has purported to help or reach to the unreached or inaccessible section of the society and where the education can be best imparted. So in this endeavor, your cooperation and your good wishes and your participation is highly essential. Kindly give comments whenever you feel that something lacuna or something is lacking. So bring to our notice. We shall take every step possible to fulfill or to go by or to admit your suggestions and put it into practice for the betterment of you all. Thank you very much for watching us. Then during AP Singh's government, Devinal was the Deputy Prime Minister.